It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Stat Hero, the first ever daily fantasy sportsbook that gives the player the advantage. Go to stathero.com/lockedon for 300% back on your first play. And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and coordinator for the Locked On Podcast Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor at Mavs.com, the trade machine maniac, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
All right, I don't know who needs to hear this, but it's time to shut Trade Machine off. It's okay. Just close out the tab. I know it's been a long 48 to 72 hours that you've been on it a lot. Shut it down. That's what you need to do right now. This is your PSA. Send this. Just send somebody this podcast. Text somebody the podcast and say, hey, I think you need to listen to the first 20 to 30 seconds of Locked On Mavs today because you need to hear this. Somebody in your life has been texting you or DMing you a million trade machine ideas or screenshots or links, and just send them this podcast and say, you need this. You got to calm down.
Send it to him. Let him know. On today's show, we are going to talk about Kristaps Porzingis, and we're just going to talk about his position right now with the Mavericks. And there's been some talk. There's been some odds posted on where he should be traded. We may dive into a couple of fake trades here and there, and just to talk about some hypotheticals. But let's just talk about Kristaps Porzingis and his standing with the Mavericks. Should they trade him? Should they not trade him? Check the box. Yes or no if you want to go ahead and check it at home or in the comments on YouTube. Let's start with Porzingis. Overall, did you think his season was a success? Considering he came into the season, missed the first 9 games, and did not expect the season to start so early. He kind of was caught off guard by that. He came in, and overall, his regular season was, offensively at least, decently efficient, right? 20 points a game, just about 9 rebounds. He shot 47% from the field. He shot just about 38% from 3. A pretty good, regular season. 85% from the line, the best of his career so far. It was a pretty, offensively, at least, efficient season for him. And so you look at those numbers, obviously all of us listening and talking here, we know the defensive end of it was completely different, and he was essentially a negative on that end for most of the season. And then in the playoffs, we all know what happened. But the playoffs is just 7 games against a really tough team that he was not a good matchup for at this point in his season. So overall, his season was what?
I wouldn't go with successful. So I don't think it was a successful season. I think if we're going with just words instead of a grade or ranking, I think it was just weird. It was a weird season. And that was just the whole collective season for KP. Not just health, but on the court fit, off the court stuff. I mean, it was just a weird season. He misses those first 9 games. Everybody thought in the organization the season was going to start later. This is why the Luka in shape type of thing came in, wasn't in shape. He misses those first.
Is that why that came in?
Well, no, I mean, he was very vocal, too, of saying, man, we didn't know the season was going to start this early. They thought it was going to start in March or February, whatever it was. And
so if it did start later, then he may have been in shape. Anyway, continue. This is about KP. Continue.
But yeah, for KP, he misses those games and just trying to get back healthy and find his rhythm and find his groove. And then, on the court stuff, then it was what's his fit? It's is he going to be the 5? We didn't know, last year Dwight goes down and it's they transition him at the 5. He has this incredible run before the bubble, then the break, the shutdown, everything. And then he has this great run in the bubble. Is he going to be the 5? Is he going to be the 4? And so then it's all the on-court stuff. They tried to feed the post stuff. They try to make the post stuff happen. Just didn't work. Wasn't efficient. Then it was all of the post-game comments from him. He was very, very open and about his frustrations with his role, with the rotation, his minutes, and we've broke down every single of those comments at post games.
If you're watching on YouTube, go to our must listen playlist and just go through a couple of those, because we've documented some of these Porzingis comments and things like that. So if you don't remember, if you're new to the channel or if you're new to the podcast, go back and listen to some of those, because they're just right there for you. It was all year. There was different comments just here and there after a game, and we broke them all down.
And he's just very honest. It's like, in a way, you really appreciate the honesty, because half the time
as
you
media
get bullcrapped by everybody. But he's very honest, and he was very honest about his feelings throughout the year, both with the coaching staff. I mean, that one time he was like, "Yeah, I've told the coaching staff this, so I'm okay to tell you guys this now." And it's like,
I'm not telling you guys anything I haven't told the coaches already. Like, oh,
yeah,
that's good.
yeah.
I'm glad you're clarifying that.
So we had all of that stuff on top of the offensive role. Then you had the other injury, that happened, and keep in mind, he's missing games here and there. He missed those 3 games in February. He had those, he's setting out some back-to-backs, all of that, still managing the other knee, the meniscus knee from this past offseason. Then he had the wrist injury that came out of nowhere. And we're like, what is this? And he misses I'm looking at 6 games in a row, 7 games in a row for that. And then he plays those final, 3 games of the season, goes into the playoff. And we're not even talking about the Luka chemistry stuff. I mean, the 2 cornerstones of the franchise, that became a story. Him playing second fiddle. We've seen everybody's written about it at this point. You guys have heard about it, and all of that. That was the thing. And then the playoffs happened. That's kind of like the cherry on top, and him having his role reduced to just standing in the corner and landing the dunker spot or shooting an open 3. And he wasn't very mobile defensively, still recovering from that. It was just a weird season for him. So yeah, that's the word I land on off the top.
It was a very weird, strange season, and it's hard to just kind of quantify it into, was it good or was it bad, right? Because there were good things about it, but there are also really bad things about it. To go from 20 points a game in the regular season to 13 points a game in the playoff series, like, that's just a weird thing for it to happen to KP and for the Mavericks in general. He had the 20-point game in game 2. He had an 18-point game in game 4. But then he also had a 7-point game and an 8-point game and a 9-point game. And for a guy that is essentially, he's not bringing anything else much except for scoring. That is really concerning, the fact that those heights weren't there. But there's an argument to be made, and I think we'll do this coming up. Should he stay or should he go kind of deal, like we did with Rick Carlisle yesterday, is coming into a full off season with a full healthy off season. Does that change a lot for Kristaps Porzingis? Having the 3rd year now with Luka, 3rd year with Carlisle, 3rd year with the organization. Does that change a lot of things going into that 3rd year for everybody? All that kind of stuff. Do they have a trade already in mind? There's maybe been some signs, at least from outside things. We've been trying to pick up different clues here and there. Do they have that? So coming up, let's get into that. Let's get into that really quick here about Kristaps Porzingis. Should he stay? Should he go? All that kind of stuff. We'll break down both sides of it coming up. But before we do, did you know that 85% of people who play daily fantasy sports lose?
Wow.
That is not worse than NBA success rate, because it's 1 in 30, but that's a really bad success rate. You're playing against thousands of other lineups, not to mention experts who are out there just doing this as their job, who have more tools and time. You don't stand a chance. So that's where Stat Hero comes in. It's the first ever daily fantasy sports book that puts the player in control and winning within reach. Here's how it works. Stat Hero shows you their lineups and dares you to beat them. It's you versus the house in a head-to-head fantasy matchup. You're like playing a game of 21 against the house and not just against a bunch of other players that are like counting cards, essentially. You name your stakes. Winner take all. You have the advantage. Stat Hero is showing you their lineups ahead of time. No one else is doing that right now. You are in total control. Stat Hero is daily fantasy sports the way it's meant to be. One-on-one. Play Stat Hero now and change the odds for yourself. Go to stathero.com/lockedon. Sign up for free. And right now, you can get 3 times back on your first play. They're giving you a 300% match. That's unheard of. Go to stathero.com/lockedon. stathero.com/lockedon. Also, want to tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're absolutely delicious. I just ate one recently. If you're listening on the podcast, you can hear the wrapper. If you're watching on YouTube, boom.
You're about to eat that, aren't you?
No, I already ate it. I just said I already ate it. This is the Grasshopper Cookie Bar. Those are absolutely delicious. Keep checking the website to see when those will be available for the public. We got them a little early, which has been pretty cool to get some of these flavors early. The really good ones, though, that are always in stock and always available: mint brownie, raspberry, cherry. The coconut are pretty good. The peanut butter brownie, double chocolate. You really can't go wrong with a lot of these. They're soft and easy to chew, covered in 100% chocolate, and they're pretty good for you. They are low calorie, low sugar, high fiber, great for a keto diet. Go check it out and use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your first order. LOCKED15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. All right, Isaac Harris. So we've talked about Kristaps Porzingis' season a little bit and just briefly broke it down and kind of what he went through this season. But where do the Mavericks stand with him? At this point, you could kind of talk there's some confirmation bias with both sides of this for KP. If you feel like the Mavericks were going to trade him, you can maybe see some clues down the way of just some post-game comments and different things from the Mavericks that would indicate that maybe they have a trade ready for him. But from everything they're saying, if you're just going to take what they're saying at face value, KP is a part of the future of this team. The Mavericks need to figure out a better way for Luka and KP to coexist, and that's why Donnie Nelson's comments are being scrutinized, because Donnie said that Luka can get KP more involved and all that. So,
just for what it's worth, I think Donnie's comment about the Luka thing was more about KP and other players around the league than it was about Luka. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, we talked about those, and I think we came to that conclusion as a little bit to not blame Luka, but then anyway. So yeah, and it was a comment after exit interviews. I don't know if that's his full view on Luka's season and all that. That was like one of his only comments about him. So Kristaps Porzingis, what's the take on if they trade him, or if they decide to trade him, why would they do it now?
Well, because you look at how much money he has left on his deal, right? He signed that max contract before, he hadn't even played a minute for Dallas, basically. And he goes into next season making 31.6 for the 2021-22 season. Then he makes 33.8. Then he has a player option in 2023-24 for $36 million. I think if you are the Mavericks and if you entertain, hey, we have the if you're watching on YouTube, we have the salaries up on the screen.
Stat sheets, come on.
If you're the Mavericks and you're looking at it and you're coming out of the playoffs and you're saying this isn't getting any better. If Rick Carlisle decided in that moment, this is the best way for us to play. He talked about it. He said, this is the best way for our team right now to play, is for him to be in that role. And if you're not comfortable paying $31.6 million to somebody to stand in the corner or play in the dunker spot, or somebody you don't think is going to be able to play defensively with your team.
That's not ideal, right? That's not ideal for a $31 million player to be standing in the dunker spot or standing in the corner, right?
It's not. Yeah. And if that's what you think he is moving forward, then that's when they start to entertain. And that's why they would, but the question is and on top of that, you do that also if they're just, him and Luka's just not compatible. If they're just not going to mesh as a duo, both on the court and off the court, then Luka is your star. He's your cornerstone. So that's why if they went the route of trading KP, that's why you would lean that direction if you're Mavericks. The question that everybody throws out there, even if they do feel that way right now, who's going to take the contract? Because of where KP's at, because of his injury stuff this past year and the weird season and all of that, he's due that much money. Who's going to take that on? How do people around the league view that? That's the biggest question. I don't think it's a John Wall type of contract that is man, nobody will take it, but it's also not like,
well, even John Wall got traded, so if that tells you anything.
Exactly.
Right?
Even John Wall got traded. But it's not some people before the season started was looking at Brad Beal's situation in Washington saying, man, what if KP has this monster season? He shows he's an all-star and he's past the injuries. He's 25 years old. And all. Like, if he had that type of season, then you're thinking about, oh man, if Brad Beal asks out, then there's a, but you're not even close to Brad Beal right now. Like that,
No.
like KP just is not that. So that contract, you almost have to start at the bottom and look at the worst contracts in the league and saying, okay, well now which of these contracts would you be willing to, swap out with? And that's why when you look at BetOnline AG, who had some odds out there, the number one team on that list, was the Boston Celtics. And that's one of the biggest conversations right now when you talk about Kristaps Porzingis' future. We saw an article that came out yesterday, I think in Bleacher Report, that, was talking about Kemba Walker's future with the Celtics. We also know the history of Kemba Walker and the interest with him going back to, 2 years ago. Like you talk to the right people on the likelihood of how they felt like Kemba would end up in Dallas or not before Al Horford opted out of that last year in his contract. You talk to the right people, you'll hear some very encouraging thoughts on
almost
whether
guaranteed
on whether Kemba Walker was going to be a Maverick. And then out of nowhere, Al Horford, who didn't have a very good season or anything, just declines a $30 million player option. And it's like, whoa, like nobody saw that happen. And then they swoop in with the extra cash and get Kemba. But even Mark Cuban acknowledged that interest in Kemba Walker to the Dallas Morning News. I was reading that story again this morning saying, hey, we were very interested in Kemba Walker. He was one of them we were. So you ask yourself that question. Boston on the screen right now, Nick has it on the screen if you're watching on YouTube, with the highest odds of this of the plus 200. It has to be centered around Kemba, right? If it's a Boston deal.
Yeah, that's the one logically that makes the most sense. Obviously, it came out today that there was a story that Kemba Walker and Boston are going to part ways, or they're ready to part ways, or they want to part ways. So I think that one's one that really stands out to everybody. And then the Warriors package, they're the second one there. They have the second highest odds. And this is just sportsbook guessing. I don't know. I wouldn't say that they have inside info or anything, but the Warriors package obviously revolves around Wiggins and a couple of those assets. The Thunder have the Horford contract, and then they have a bunch of assets they can throw at the Mavericks if they decide to go that way. The Magic would be really fascinating because then it's like bringing back a different version of Vooch, like a non-rebounding, smaller version of Vooch, and doing that whole thing again. But they have a bunch of guys, and they don't have a ton of scorers, so maybe he could come in and be a big scorer for them.
Well, the Magic deal, too,
line.
if you wanted wings, from Dallas's point, it would be the Gary Harris, Terrence Ross, or Gary Harris and Mo Bamba, something around those. And Gary Harris, an expiring contract. So much of it depends on where Dallas, stands with KP. This is the question we're asking. It's like, if you're going to the offseason saying, if you're Dallas saying, okay, we have to get some value back, or if you're going into it saying, we just want to start over. If we can get a clean slate, then we get the clean slate. We just don't know where Dallas is at in that mindset. But going back to the Boston thing, can we have the Kemba discussion? Like, is that, if you're Dallas and Boston says, okay, we're kind of done with the Kemba thing, we want to shake it up. They have a hole in their center spot. They have Rob Williams that they're going to pay, but if they want a different look, if they want to form their own, if they believe in, Porzingis moving forward and say, hey, we want to form our own big three, if KP, Brown, Tatum, all of that. If you're Dallas, do you hang up? Do you listen? Where do you stand on that?
The Kemba thing is so hard because I don't know what the state of his knees are in, right? And I don't know about, like, one of the reasons why the Mavericks would trade Kristaps Porzingis this offseason is at least he's going in healthy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's at least a little uptick there. At least he's didn't have another knee situation at the end of the season where all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's just going to be injured the rest of his career. At least he's going in healthy, and I think that could be really big for his career. And I think medical staffs could talk themselves into, okay, well, now he has a year to build up that strength a little bit. He's not just rehabbing. Maybe we can get him to do some of that injury prevention.
The injuries were fluky. They were contact injuries. He's talked about that a lot.
Yep, and that's true. That's true. That's not just like PR.
Yeah,
those were contact injuries. So also you have guys like Steph Curry, very different player, obviously different body type, but he had a ton of ankle injuries at the beginning of his career. They got him to do some exercises when he didn't have to do rehab and all that, and so then he came back and he hasn't really had problems with those ankles that much since then. And he's won a couple MVPs, which is kind of nice. So you can talk yourself into it. But with Kemba, he's 31. He's a small guard. Small guard. Yeah, small guards do not age particularly well, save Chris Paul, who is lighting up the Denver Nuggets as we record this right now. But he only played 43 games this year. He played 56 the year before that, 82 the year before that. So it's just starting to go down for him. And I've listened to enough John Corrales on Locked On Celtics to know that I don't think Kemba Walker is the reliable type of player the Mavericks would want in that number 2. Now, neither is Kristaps Porzingis, right? So you're going to have to trade something to get something. And I don't know if Kristaps Porzingis is enough of something to trade for something more valuable. So the Kemba thing, just as a player, we were all for it. We were ready for that. I think a big what if would be, what if they had Kemba, Luka, and Porzingis? That would be a really interesting what if. We'll probably do this summer. But I always go against it because, okay, what if it happens? All right, well then flash forward a couple months and we're just complaining that Kemba is hurt again and that the Mavericks traded off KP for nothing and KP is probably going and like playing and at least he's bringing spacing, right? Like at least he's doing that.
I would love to hear Bill Simmons talk about KP all the time though.
Oh yeah, get ready for that. Oh man. So yeah, I think I would be against it. But coming up, let's talk a little bit about some of these other trade offers. We'll talk about why the Mavericks should keep Porzingis and why it's not a good idea to trade him at this point. We'll get into that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Lucy. Lucy is nicotine gum that has been researched and developed for 3 years to be made for people, not for patients. Lucy has created nicotine gum with 4 milligrams of nicotine that comes in 3 flavors: wintergreen, cinnamon, and pomegranate. You can also get a lozenge with 4 milligrams of nicotine that comes in cherry ice, citrus, and mint. Lucy lozenges and gums are FSA and HSA eligible. You can also see your FSA cards to purchase Lucy now. It's convenient, it's discreet. Products can be enjoyed anywhere, on flights, at work, on the go, anywhere that you need to, even at the gym. Not while you're recording a podcast, but you can do it anywhere else. It's 2021. Get rid of those cigarettes, unplug your vape, throw out your dip, and get some Lucy nicotine gum or lozenges. This is the real deal. A subscription to Lucy comes directly to your door each month. It's so simple, and you don't even have to leave your house because Lucy has delivery down. Locked On NBA listeners, go to lucy.co and use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get 20% off of all products on your first order, including gum or lozenges. Again, lucy.co. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA at checkout. Also, I have to give you this disclaimer. Warning, this product contains nicotine derived from tobacco. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Lucy.co and use that promo code LOCKEDONNBA. All right, Isaac Harris, let's flip it over just for a little bit and do the opposite. Why would the Mavericks keep Kristaps Porzingis at this point? And I'll start here.
I can't share my Kemba thought?
Oh yeah, share your Kemba thought first.
I just want to say the other side. You kind of said why you wouldn't do the Kemba, and I thought you were going to flip it to the other side and say why would they do the Kemba thing. And I was going to say this. There's one less year on the Kemba deal. And he makes 36 next year. Then he has a player option for 37 after that. So it's a year shorter than Porzingis' deal.
His deal's a little bigger, though, per year.
It is. Yes, 36, 37 compared to KB being 31, 33, 36. It's also a veteran, right? A veteran, another creator in the offense when he's playing, all of that. And so I think that would be the selling point if they did a deal like that, of saying, okay, if it's not a locker room fit, if it's, if you're swapping out health concern for health concern, you're like, at least this health concern is a vet in the locker room that we've been desperately needing. And when he's playing, it's another creator. You still have a ton of defensive issues still, different types, 6 foot aging point guard, 7'3", injured center, still two different, different concerns defensively. But I'm saying that would be the selling point I think the Mavericks would make if they went that direction. But your question of why they should keep KP, I mean, that's still the best option. Like in the dream world, you make it like you want it to work because you walking into this offseason, like you have 2 guys that before the ACL injury, if he can get back to that, like that, he's 25. Like
how many years have we been saying? We've been saying that for 2 years now. If he can get back to,
I know. I trust. Yeah, I know. I get that, but it's like he's 25. He's fully, like going into this offseason fully healthy and all that. Like if you're walking into next season with the mindset of, hey, the playoff series was just an anomaly. Like that just isn't gonna, like that's not the role we want from him. we think fully healthy KP next year is going to have a completely different role. Him and Luka, the chemistry is overblown. Like they're fine. Like if you believe all of that, then you still want it to work like deep down, because then it still gives you the flexibility of going to the offseason with 35 million. You bring back Tim at like around 20. You still have like 15 million in cap. Like you can add the pieces then. There's a route still there.
And it's not like we haven't seen Luka and KP work well together ever, right? It's not like it's never happened. Last season, I thought they worked together really well, and I was looking forward to this season when they would get better at that. I remember Zach Lowe talking about when Luka and KP can do their little pick and pop thing and pick and roll and work some stuff out, and you just see them. There was a rhythm to it. Luka would do his little step back, and Porzingis would be able to step into an open space, and then Luka would be able to kick over to him. There was a real rhythm and a chemistry there that we are starting to develop, and then all of a sudden this offseason happens, and KP comes into the season, and it's totally different, and it's just really strange to me to see how it, and we go back to KP's season being weird. It was weird. That was one of the reasons why it was weird. So there is precedent, and there is some history and chemistry there that they did have before. So if KP full healthy offseason, Luka and him maybe spend some time, depending on national team duties that Luka has to do, maybe they don't have that, but going into a training camp, getting a full training camp together, they've never had a full training camp together, right? Like, isn't that true? Did he have one the beginning of not this season, but last season? I can't think back to exactly what KP participated in, but it's to have another one this season, I think could be really huge for them. And huge for KP because he's a real creature of habit. He's a guy that needs, very specific things. And so maybe coming into a season, knowing exactly when he's going to play and where and how with Luka, I think could be really big for him. The other reason why you keep him, and this is just a value play, is if you think you can boost his trade value up until the trade deadline and keep him healthy until then, again, that's a big if, but if you can keep him healthy then his trade value is a little bit better than it would be this offseason when he's coming off of just looking awful in this playoff series.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's that's where a lot of people think they're at right now, saying, hey, just watching the current series that we just watched and considering everything and then how he was used and all of that, if you think if that's the route they have for them, like even if you wanted to trade him for a better fitting piece next to Luka, there might not be a ton of options out there right now because his value is super low. So can you rebuild that logo? Can you rebuild that, what's the word? Rebuild value.
The value?
If you could rebuild that value, and I know where's the logo coming to that.
Logo, buy one, get one free.
But once again, it goes all the way back to what we were saying a while ago of how, I don't want to say desperate, but how much urgency they have right now to shake up the roster. And if they're so set on, if KP has told them or whatever it is, like, hey, this just isn't going to work. Like, what is the mindset that they would have for a deal? Like, is it, hey, we just want a clean slate to where you're calling up San Antonio saying, hey, you have 50 something million in cap space. Hey, instead of you spending it, would you just want KP for a couple protected first or something like that? Like, would they just do that for draft picks? Would you call up Charlotte and say, give us Terry Rozier and then just you can absorb the rest into your cap space and it's just like a 1-for-1 trade? Would it be something like that? Or would it be, hey, we have to turn him into something for us to move forward? We can't within ourselves just do it for nothing. And then are you just looking for pieces? Like if the Clippers just get bounced and get swept by the Jazz, would they do Kennard, Zubats, and Marcus Morris? And then it's 3 pieces, but they're kind of okay.
I think after he just played against the Clippers, I don't know if they're for that.
I know, but would the Magic do, Gary Harris and the Terrence Ross deal like we talked about? Would the Kings do Buddy Hield and Bagley?
Can we stop at the Gary Harris one? Because this is the second time you mentioned that one. And I think it was mentioned on the Zach Lowe podcast, but the Gary Harris would be just the perfect next step up from, so they're trying to find a guard to pair with Luka, right?
Yeah.
First year, DeLon Wright, right? Second year, Josh Richardson. Third year, Gary Harris. The perfect offensive, questionable, defensive, a little bit better guard to go next to him. It would just be the next step up. If it was a Pokemon, he would just evolve the next evolution. Would be Gary Harris, I think, from Josh Richardson.
And
because
Drew Holiday.
That would be the best one. That's a mega evolution right there.
Yeah.
Take that moonstone and evolve that guy.
But that's the thing. Like, if
Add
Dallas
some rare candies to that.
if Dallas wanted to trade him, what could they get? We don't know. What would they want? What would they settle for?
Air, man.
Because you're just not like, even like the Indiana thing. I've seen people throw out Indiana and be like Miles Turner, TJ Warren. It's like, I mean,
yes,
but like, that's the thing. It's like, I don't think Indiana's doing that. Right. I mean,
yeah.
So it all comes down to how bad they want to, if they really do want to get off the contract, if they want to work with KP in it, or if they're going into the offseason with the mindset of everything that they're saying publicly to us of, hey, he's fully healthy. Let's try to make this work. They're both super young for the better of our organization and everything. Let's rock with this again.
And it's not like we heard a lot of comments on exit interviews that were like, KP is the future of this franchise along with Luka. It's not like they did a lot of committing.
Two best players
to KP. They did say that, which is not, that's not a commitment to the future. That's just saying
They've
what it is right now.
That, though. Yeah, ever since they got him, and KP said everything you'd want to hear from him in the exit interviews too. Yeah. He's been saying that over the past few weeks, and he's about adapting to his role, adapting to this new NBA. He knows he has to get better defensively, and like all of this stuff. He's saying all the right things right now. So, yeah, it feels like there's positivity within the organization, and if they held on to him, then we know that, hey, they believe in him for now. It could be to hold on to him to build value. But yeah,
if they hold on to him, we know nothing. That's basically what we know is we know nothing. But yeah, there you go. Let us know in the comments. What do you think about Kristaps Porzingis? Should they trade him? They just cut ties now and trade him even while his value is really low and try to just cut ties? Or should they try to hold on to him, keep him because he's still good and they can still salvage this? All that, let us know in the comments. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.